Test 1, 2.
Oh, hello there.
Reginald, how you doing, sir?
Okay, doing good, Stuart, and yourself?
I am hanging in there, getting by.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of snow to clear off and just no time to do it yet. So
Oh, yeah. Wow.
it's not that much. It's just a couple inches here and there, and it starts to add up,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I guess it can accumulate pretty good depending on how much is falling.
yeah, and it's been a little chilly, so but I don't mind. It's winter. I love it. I just gotta make some time to get out there on my lunch break and tidy up a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's all I need is somebody walking their dog in front of my house and falling and breaking something. I can't afford that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Barb, hello, welcome. Glad that you're here. Everybody else joining, thank you so much for being here. A lot less awkward if I had people to talk to on these sessions,
Yeah.
I think the first session, or the first and second session I did, nobody showed up. It was just me.
Oh, is that right?
I just started answering emails and addressing questions. I'm like, do.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all right, though. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you can never have too much extra time.
No.
I don't want to say free, but extra.
Yeah. There's no such thing as free time. But extra,
Yeah.
I would pay for that.
Sure.
I would pay good money for extra time.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll let some more folks come in there. And again, as always with these sessions, I host these for you guys. So Q&A, this is the time to do it. If you got a question about something you maybe saw online or on one of the Facebook pages, go ahead, fire for effect. Again, this is the place to do it. We'll get those answered. If you have exams coming up, anything like that, just let me know and we'll get that addressed and we'll get you coached, because it always helps when we do this as a group. We do coaching and prep for like CMP exams, because everybody gets to hear it, and then people that have gone through it, you get to share your experience. Because this process, for me, I've been at this for a long time, so I probably don't think about it as much, but for people in this process, there's life-changing money here, so there's a lot of pressure sometimes, and it's nice to have people who've gone through it before you, who say, hey, listen, that's to be expected, or this happened to me too, or this is what I did. That's the whole purpose of this Zoom session that I put together, because we need that community, right? We need that.
Sure.
Even if it's virtual,
Sure.
we needed some place to share with this, because if your friends that you hang out with aren't a veteran, or they're not going through the process, they're just not going to understand, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we're here for, because we get it. I get it.
Okay. I do have a question, matter of
Yeah,
fact. I was thinking about, the high level review. So I guess once I let them know that I hadn't had a CMP exam, that'll probably be the next order of business, right?
Yeah, I think in your case, what they'll do is they'll obviously make the correction, but they'll have to do a CMP exam, get you in there for that, and then get it moving forward. When it's mental health, yeah, they always do a CMP exam, always.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
All right.
The exception to always are vets who've been out of service a year or less, and there's a lot of documentation both in their military record and then post-military. There's some more documentation in there as well. So the VA is like, well, in this case, we really don't need a CMP exam. Plus, they've given us DBQ. But in your case, I would say let's plan for one.
Yeah, sure. All right.
So Barb, you just asked a good question. We submitted your claim together yesterday through one of these sessions, and it was for mental health. And next up, we talked about GERD. So we need to wait for your mental health claim to come through, because mental health claims can be we can connect things like GERD and IBS secondarily to mental health claims. So the more conditions that you have that are associated with a disability that you want to file for, the better the chances you have of winning that claim. So in your case, yes, let's wait for that claim to go through. Then we'll attack GERD as a secondary. And I know I think I talked about it this week, but I'll cover it again. And the reason mental health conditions can lead to or be tied to things like GERD and IBS is because our mental health issues impact our digestive tract, and it can make them go out of whack. Right? We've heard the term. It's not scientific, but we've heard the term. Oh, I'm so scared I poop my pants. Right? That's based on science, though. That's based on science. You get that flight or fight method. Right? Your anxiety kicks in. You're nervous about something, and it makes your digestive system go into overdrive. Mental health conditions can do that as well. Okay, GERD is your upper digestive tract. IBS, obviously, your lower digestive tract, and you can file for both as separate claims. I've had veterans come to the program, to Elite, and I'm talking to them, and they get 30% for GERD and IBS. Well, that's a terrible mistake. They can't lump two disabilities under one. That's not right. You need to be compensated for both. All right, both GERD and IBS as separate claims. And then we fight that with a nexus letter, and we have them separated in the VA. Typically, we'll correct that. So, we talked before, usually the VA tells you that you don't have service connection. That's primarily what we hear in a denied claim. Probably 95% of the claims that are denied, the VA says no service connection. Now, there are reasons for saying no service connection might not always be right. If they tell you, I don't see that in your record before, you never reported it. With mental health, you don't have to, okay? It doesn't have to be in your record. You don't have to have reported it. So in that case, they made a mistake when they denied service connection. But sometimes you have a condition, maybe you reported, I'm going to use an ankle, left ankle. I'm just going to pick an arbitrary condition because it's something I've worked with clients on. Left ankle, there's one or two times in service that they reported it, but it's been 10 years now, right? It's been 10 years. In 3 or 4 years after they got out of service, they went back to the doctor and reported it again, maybe taking some pain meds now, but the VA still says, no, it's not service connected, okay? It was just an ankle sprain. That's not, arthritis in your left ankle now. Nope, not service connected. So how do we fix that, right? How do we combat that? Because a lot of us, when we were in service, frankly, we didn't report things, okay? I carried a clearance for almost my entire career, so there was a lot of things I would never report, right? Mental health stuff, no way. No way I'm going to risk my clearance, because if I don't have a clearance, I can't even get to my office, okay? My whole office was a secure area, let alone go into the SCIF or something. So, yeah, I didn't report things. I was guilty of that too. And when we don't have those documents, we don't have it reported in your STR, your service treatment record, the VA will typically say not service connected, but there's a way to fight that. Okay, there's a way to combat it. And obviously, that's what we're going to talk about here. Y'all have access to this. Now, what I don't want is to say, hey, listen, I know we don't have records. Let's just get in there and let's just make it happen. It doesn't work like that. Just because you have this document, we're going to talk about the sworn declaration today. Just because you have a sworn declaration, the document itself isn't, the only thing in this chain to establish service connection. It's who writes it, and then how they write it. Those are the big things. So when you don't have evidence of any type, if you don't have medical evidence, if you don't have a report or something, we can use a sworn declaration as a tool to verify something that happened. I do this almost all the time with tinnitus because nobody reports tinnitus in service for the most part, right? We have ringing in our ears, you come off the line, you shake it out and you keep going. So we don't report tinnitus. A lot of us don't even know what it is until we've actually gotten out of the service, which is why we didn't report it. Well, the sworn declaration, it's a great tool to win a claim that you didn't have evidence for. So we're going to cover this. Is on the VA Claims Insider website. You all have access to this. You have access to the form generator that we're going to talk about here in a bit, the online form generator. So the RAMP program, Rapid Appeals Modernization Program, started in February of last year. We've talked frequently about the different claims processes, supplemental, higher level review, Board of Veterans Appeals, okay? The RAMP program is what restructured the VA appeal system and gave us those three options. I think they are hands down the best things that we can do to fight for you guys, for vets, okay? So we'll cover the three options that are associated with RAMP first, okay? Higher level review, right? That's what Reginald's prepping for. This one, you can get it turned around pretty quick. We use this when we believe there's a mistake, and right here, an explicit and erroneous error. But you can't, you can't use this and provide more evidence. They won't look at it. They won't look at new evidence, okay? This one is it's rarely recommended as favorable decisions are low, and that's because it has to be an erroneous error, okay? We don't just file a higher level review for no reason. We've talked about, Reginald's case. They didn't count, they stated in there, hey, it wasn't reported in his history for what he filed for, and you don't have to report it. We talked about that. 3 TAC 309 out of the 38 CFR, that's the paragraph. It lists the disabilities that you have to have reported to establish service connection. Mental health's not on there. That's an explicit and erroneous error, okay? And sometimes you just got to share that with the higher level reviewer. I believe, sir, or ma'am, this was an error. The 38 CFR 3 TAC 309 that they actually referenced in my letter doesn't list my condition as a requirement for having been reported, okay? I do a lot of higher level reviews, a lot. I think I did 54 last year, won 97% of them, okay? Because the VA, contrary to what they tried to tell Mr. Lara last week, the VA makes mistakes, all right? They make mistakes. Now, supplemental claim, we're going to talk more about that today. And we have to use one of these three options. Anytime we file for a disability that was previously denied, we have to. There's no choice. If you submit the claim on va.gov, let's say you submitted for tinnitus before, you were denied, you log back in, you resubmit again, the VA will send you a letter saying, sorry, you can't file your claim this way. These are the documents that you need. It's either going to be higher level review, supplemental, or Board of Veterans Appeals. If you don't respond within X amount of days, we'll close your claim. That's typically what happens. And that happens with vets that I work with because they, they're rushing, they want to get through this process, and they don't send me their updated current disability lists for me benefits. So I don't know that they already filed for something. And then it comes back, the case was closed, and they're like, oh, Stu, it's already closed. What happened? And I'm like, well, did you file for it before? And then they tell me yes. And I'm like, you should have told me that, because now we got to do a supplemental claim, and we'd almost be done by now. All right. So supplemental claim, you're reopening a condition that was denied, but you're going to provide new and relevant evidence. Evidence includes medical evidence, DBQ, nexus letter, buddy letters, and then there it is, the sworn statements, sworn declaration, which can attest to the service connection or the severity of the disability that you're claiming, okay? So tinnitus, and I have a handful of folks I'm working with, denied for tinnitus. We do a sworn declaration. We submit a supplemental form, 20-0995. We fax that off, boom, get the claim turned around, okay? Again, the sworn declaration and the buddy letter are different. They don't carry the same weight. This year we got to adjust this a little bit. So the standard buddy letter we put on that form, 413, but the sworn declaration looks a little different, and I'll show you here in a minute. Here's why the sworn declaration carries more juice, as they say. If I can get this to show up, there it is. Under penalty of perjury, okay, means you can legally attest and certify to the statement therein. It's similar to a promise under oath. Those 4 words hold a lot of weight in the eyes of the VA rater, a lot more than just a buddy letter does, okay? Now, going back to what I started today's talk on about this, it's not just the form, okay? Whoever writes the form, whether it's you or somebody else, they have to have firsthand knowledge of what happened. So if you're filing, or you're going to ask for a sworn declaration, and your case is you fell out of a vehicle, hit your head, and got, you're unconscious briefly, got up, kept going on with the training evolution, whoever writes that sworn declaration to support you has to have been there. And we need to be able to prove that. So they should have the same certificate, the same TAD orders, at least in the same unit, okay? They have to write firsthand knowledge, and it has to be specific details. We just can't do a sworn declaration that says, yep, I knew Reginald, he's awesome. His tinnitus, man, it's causing him problems. He's having a rough time. That's vague. I didn't say anything quantifiable. The VA doesn't operate off vague. They operate off facts, specific details. Something like I worked with Reginald from this time to this time. We were at the same unit. While we were there, he complained frequently about his tinnitus. We noticed some days he affected him at work. He started having issues with other things. Describe what those things are, et cetera, et cetera. That would be a sworn statement that carries weight. Okay. Okay. How do we use that for the supplemental claim? Again, you had your time in service, you never reported tinnitus, you never reported that left ankle, right? Maybe you went in and said it was strained, and they gave you vitamin Motrin, right? And you got it out, and you got out of there and continued on. Because we see this all the time, right? And most of the time, something that we consider insignificant, we suck it up and we drive on, right? Like today. Today we're dealing with it now. It's reared its ugly head, so to speak. And it's gotten worse, okay? So we don't really have it in the records. We don't have it official. That's what the sworn declaration is. It helps us establish service connection. Remember, 90%, 95% of claims that are denied, it's because there's not service connection, okay? There's not clear service connection. And I mentioned this once, and I'll cover it again because it's important. I'm not going to help people write false sworn declarations. I won't do it, all right? I'm not going to be involved in that. That's not how I operate, all right? They got to have, whoever writes it for you, or if you write it for someone else, they got to have direct knowledge of the incidents so they can confirm your story. Maybe you guys are at the same unit, but you deployed forward and they didn't, okay? They can't write a sworn declaration for something that happened if they weren't there. They just can't do it. Maybe somebody else can, all right? Even if they're not in the same unit, if you're still talking to them today, you might be able to get that taken care of. Okay, let's see here. So the sworn declaration, establishing service connection, written by somebody who has direct knowledge of the incident. When I have a veteran write a sworn declaration for themselves, guess what? They're the ones who have direct knowledge. Let's see, I just Googled this one, and I'll give it to you here, sir. There you go. Okay. And again, remember I keep saying specifics, right? It can't be general. Don't waste your time. If maybe somebody wants to help you out, but they can't remember the incident. It's okay if you help them remember. That's fine. Do they have direct firsthand knowledge. And the reason I say that is I have a veteran I'm working with. His is a PTSD non-combat claim, a vehicle rollover, some people died, okay? So a friend of his is writing a support document, a support statement. All his friend can focus on, though, are the friends that they lost in the accident, and he struggles to remember the events. And it's hard, right? I get it, that's hard. So they've been spending time on the phone, kind of talking through things. You know, both of them realizing they probably actually should get some official therapy and professional help. This is, you know, something that happened 30 years ago, right? This is a long time ago. And they've been coping, they've been getting through things. So let's see here. So the more specific information they can put in there, the more powerful the statement's going to be. Okay. Let's see here. And I'll go through. Okay, if you have gaps in your testimony, okay, gaps in the incident, another reason for a sworn declaration, because remember, when you go to the C&P exam, they're trying to verify service connection, life impact, and then why you might have gaps, okay? And here's some examples of it. Here. Okay. And so here's a specific example here. On or about June 3rd, while running on a mission in a combat area, I twisted my ankle, fell on some rubble, hit my knee on another large piece of concrete. Okay. My friend so-and-so stopped to help me up. He commented later how hard the fall looked, noticed the tear in my pants at the knee, noticed I was bleeding. So you see how those details are specific and they don't leave room for ambiguity. If somebody writes a statement that leaves room for ambiguity, the rater, or excuse me, the examiner and or the rater might both suspect fraud, okay? And they might just dismiss it. Again, a lot of times our buddies will tell us, yeah, I'll write that for you, bro, no problem. What do you want me to say? Which is great. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but they need to spend a little time and get some of those specific details. Those are really important, all right? Again, with tinnitus, you know, another one. I worked on the flight line for 3.5 years. We had to work on the flight line while aircraft were spooling up, prepping for takeoff, landing, etc. We didn't always have ear protection because we get in and out of our service vehicles while on security patrol, and my ears would frequently ring at the end of the day. I didn't realize what it was until after the fact, okay? So that's a specific example, right, with specific details. Your DD-214, that'll tell us you were at the airbase. It'll tell you were at a airbase, right? That makes sense. We know that Air Force security forces, they send patrols out sometimes on the tarmac, especially if you're, you know, dealing with Cold War stuff, nuclear weapons, etc. Okay. So the law's on your side, okay? If you don't have medical evidence by law right here, and this doesn't mean it's an option, but the Secretary of the VA shall accept sufficient proof of service connection or any disease, even if there's no official record, okay? And as long as we're giving them some kind of evidence based on that. So layman's terms, you didn't seek medical attention because you were in conditions that didn't allow for it, right? You were training, you guys were running and gunning. In that situation, sworn declaration should be sufficient, provided you can prove that it was in those conditions, meaning that you were there in theater in that AO when it happened. Okay, I know he keeps referencing combat, but we use these for non-combat things too. The key, both your service record and your DD-214 have to support this, okay? This becomes an issue when some of the newer vets coming out that have been participating in the cross-functional side of the service. So that's what I did. I created and trained cross-functional teams of 70 to 80 people. Some were different branches of service. They would be TAD to us. Some were UAV operators. Some were electronic gatherers. Some were UUV operators. They would come from different branches of service, TAD. Well, I'm not putting stuff in their records, right? I'll write their evals and stuff, but I didn't put stuff in their military record. I don't have access to it. They're not ADCON to me, administrative control. They're TACON, they're tactical control. So this is where it becomes an issue. If you've served, if somebody, and I deal with this a lot, they supported, some of the alphabet agencies in Iraq, okay? The CIA, the NSA. So they were attached to them, but there's no documentation that they went on the operation because the operation itself is still classified. We're out of luck. At that point, we're out of luck. It's just the way it is. That's my job. My job is to tell you the truth. Listen, we're going to waste our time. We're going to hit brick wall. The VA's not going to tell you their service connection because they can't verify that you were there, because according to paperwork, you were still back at home base. You didn't deploy with those guys, okay? And it's unfortunate, but I'm just, I gotta be honest with you, and that's just how it works out. So we gotta have proof you were there. Most of the time, your DD-214 covers that. Your performance reports, evals, they'll cover that. Awards you got, you can use those to verify that you were there. The other reason we can use a sworn declaration, something's gotten worse, right? Your back, for example, your back condition's gotten worse. You're rated at 10, maybe 20, you're filing for an increase. And you see here, and I keep saying this, specific details. Sit down with your family members, all right? The people that know you and see you every day, they know you best, okay? When I'm asking you questions, I don't really know you like we all want. I'm just this other guy on the other end here on the phone. So sit down with your family member, all right? Friends, family, people that have known you for a while. Hey, I complain about my back. Do I complain about it a lot? And hear what they have to say. Like, oh yeah, man, I see you limping, right? Like that's what I deal with. I have a limp because of my radiculopathy in my left leg. And I'm so used to it now, I don't pay attention to it, but sometimes I'll see my buddies that I haven't seen in a couple of years, and they're like, oh man, bro, you're limping. Like, I'm so sorry. So the specific details, your friends can help you with those. Your family can help you, okay? They absolutely can. Moving along, okay? So again, when you want to speak to the severity or the worsening of a disability, okay? And in part of that specific detail, what's going to help you, dates. Knowing the dates, okay? I was first awarded compensation for my back, 2006 at 10%. 2010, I was bumped up to 20. I continue to go to the doctor. Here's an MRI. My back condition's worse. My spouse provided a sworn declaration. She says I have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, whatever it is, okay? But you got that. Remember, the chronicity and frequency. We keep talking about those phrases. This ties into that. Dates are a great way to prove or demonstrate frequency over time, right? That life impact. We always come back to life impact and service connection. If there's an error, there's a mistake. That's what we use the sworn declaration for, okay? And here's an example. And I've seen this before. Let's say you told your doctor you had severe pain in your heel and ankle because you fell in combat and you suffered a knee injury. But the record only indicates heel and ankle, leaves out the knee. Well, that's a mistake. So sworn declaration becomes secondary evidence. That's how we win that one, okay? Now, in this website is the link. I also have the link for the online form generators, okay? We'll go through it right now. I just want to show you what it looks like. So this is the sworn declaration. It's an online form. And if you're filling it out for yourself, what you'll put here is, I am the veteran, right? Because you're writing it for yourself. That's how you know the veteran. Some of you, I think I've sent the flow for a spousal or a buddy letter, and it always starts with how you know them, how long you've known them, what the disability is, what you witnessed. This is the same thing, except now, remember what the website said that Brian put in the blog, under penalty of perjury, those 4 words, right? Declare under penalty of perjury. So you're swearing, you're attesting to this as an affidavit of what happened, okay? And if you have friends that are willing to write sworn declarations, what's awesome is you don't have to print and sign this. The way we have it set up, we pay for it through Adobe. You can sign it digitally, and that legally counts. So we try to make this as easy as we can for the people in your life who are willing to help you. You can send them this link. They can open it up, print it out, get themselves a copy emailed. We get that in your Google Drive folder, then we keep going on, all right? And I'll show you what it looks like. So going back to the website, this is the link I'd send you right here. Okay, it would come up like that. They would put their information in, their name. So they put their name and their email address right there. When it finishes, it'll send them a completed form to that email. And it'll send one to VA Claims Insider, but that it's just for their records. It's a real pain to get to. So make sure you take it and move it on. Move it on to me where we need to go, okay? So that's what it looks like when you send it to them. This is another link I can send you here. These are 3 different forms, all online generated, right? So this is the buddy letter, 214138, and then the sworn declaration. That's what we're talking about today. And then this one's for PTSD, the 21-0781. All right. So again, the sworn declaration, this is what it looks like. How you know the veteran, and then what you witnessed. All right. Specific details, get it in there. Dates, you know, what you noticed. I saw bleeding. The kneecap of the jeans were torn, etc. If it's an error, this is where you put that in there. This is actually what happened. I believe the doctor made a mistake here, or I was roommates with veteran so-and-so, you know, when we served in Iraq, and his snoring kept the whole, you know, the whole battalion up. Nobody slept. 100% certain that he's dealing with sleep apnea, and he just didn't know that he was supposed to report it or something like that, okay? But again, specific details, dates if you can remember, and if you're not sure even, sit down with friends and family and ask them, hey, what's different? What have you noticed? I'm back, you know, I'm dealing with some disabilities, back pain, etc. What do you notice that's different? And you'd probably be surprised at what's in there, what they might have to say. Any questions on the sworn declaration form? All right. And again, at any time, hop in, ask questions. Totally okay. That's what we're here for. And let's grab some other stuff here. Okay, we'll pull this one up if I can find it. All right, so I know we cover this one. We've covered it a couple. We haven't even covered it this week again. But I think at this point we might be noticing a theme here, right? C&P exam. They're trying to establish service connection, and then why there might be evidentiary gaps. So let's see here. Oh, it's Barb saying, maybe it's just me, but I didn't realize I could go to urgent care for other than service connection. Yeah, you can. We got to get, keep reporting conditions, all right? Even if they're not even if they're not service connected, we report those conditions. Maybe we can find something to service connect it to using, nexus letters from the med team, etc. And let's see, we got the different, I think we covered the secondary list the other day as well, but there's a list of secondary things that you can also file for. It's not that I don't know what I'm saying, I'm just trying to find that document, and I'll prep it, and we can cover that too here in a bit. And let's see. Oh, wasn't this one? That was the other one. Let's see. There we go. So we covered this one yesterday. So you got out of service, you have a couple disabilities, right? You had a couple things, not much, and you're like, you know what, I'm just not going to go anymore. Well, migraines, they can be service connected to all these different conditions, right? So if you got tinnitus, sinusitis, sleep apnea, TMJ, neck pain, mental health conditions, right? That's a big one. We talk about that. So get them reported, because every time you go to the doctor and report it, for the most part, on these conditions, because you can't test for migraines unless you've suffered a head injury, you can't really test for it. So you go in there and you share it with the doctor what's happening. That becomes your diagnosis. It's that simple. It's really that easy. Same with ED, and again, that's not a compensated disability, but you do get paid through SMC, okay, special monthly compensation. But again, we can't go forward with a nexus letter unless we have a diagnosis. So if you have friends who are thinking about filing someday, and they have one or two disabilities, but they're just like, I don't know if it's going to work, tell them to get into the doctor, get it reported, all right? Chronic fatigue syndrome, GERD, that should be, no, this was supposed to be highlighted. Oops. Let's fix that. So GERD, IBS, these are things we can service connect to mental health. If you're taking NSAIDs, I mean, how many of us in the service took vitamin Motrin, right? They give us a bag of it, we take it. Well, like I said, you take that over a long period of time, you can develop GERD because it tears up your stomach lining, all right? So absolutely continue to report conditions to your civilian doctor. That's fine. Just keep reporting those things, okay? The more you report them, the more frequency that you build up. And then if we find one of these secondaries on the list, we can work together to get that connected, okay? Going back to the C&P exam, because we're talking today about the sworn declaration. So service connection, that's seriously the vast majority of the time, the VA is not saying you don't have the condition, they're saying you don't have service connection. And at the end, it'll say favorable decision, though, you have such and such, right? Whatever that disability was. And when vets don't understand this, it really can put them in a mental downward spiral. I've talked to a lot of clients who, they've submitted a claim 4, 5, 6 times. They've been denied. They're at their wits' end. And they come to me and I'm talking to them and they're just cussing out the VA. The VA says I don't have this, and this is what I'm dealing with. I have all these, diagnoses, and it's hard, but I gotta tell them honestly, it's not that the VA says you don't have the condition. The VA is saying it's not service connected. That's what we have to focus on. If you got out of service in 1975 and you didn't report anything until 1995, you have what's called an evidentiary gap. And if we can't fill that gap, we're never going to establish service connection, all right? As a company, we're really good at what we do, but we're not miracle workers. We don't do fraud. We don't help with making up stories. We don't do that. I've worked with a couple of vets that I've had to cancel their contract, all right? They came to me and they got through boot camp and then got out of the service. They did about 8-9 months in the service, and now they want to file for PTSD because of what happened at boot camp, because it was stressful. That's not going to fly. The VA is never going to buy off on that. The hundreds of thousands of people that went through boot camp all went through the same thing, okay? Now, I had another client went through boot camp was actually assaulted repeatedly by the drill instructor, that instructor was arrested and went to jail. News reports, right? We can prove that it happened. There's evidence that this person was at boot camp at the same time. It's in that person's record. Their DD-214 matches that. So that was an easy case to win. In that case, they were actually assaulted, ridiculously so. A lot of people were. So, you know, part of this job that's hard is dealing with vets who you can tell are trying to cheat the system. None of us will support that. But if you come to me, come to any of us, the VA Claims Insider, and you're like, hey, Stu, here's my diagnosis. I'm diagnosed with neuropathy, okay? That's nerve damage. And then you tell me you served in Vietnam. I'm going to tell you the first thing you need to do, get registered with the Agent Orange registry program, get your physical in. Now that qualifies you for presumptives, okay? We got your DD-214 that says you were in country, tells you what base you were at. The VA lists bases that if you were there, you probably were exposed to Agent Orange. Then we get a nexus letter from the med team, and we submit your claim, all right? But if you tell me that you served in Vietnam, but you never were boots on the ground in Vietnam, you were, you know, in a country outside of the list that the VA has. I'm not saying you weren't exposed to Agent Orange, but what I'm going to tell you is it's going to be hard to establish service connection now. That makes it harder, okay? We always start with proof, evidence, medical records when we can. In some cases, we can use sworn declarations to fill those evidentiary gaps or to establish service connection, okay? Any questions on anything that we're talking about here? I know I'm probably putting a lot of info out there. All right, so today I won't go through the rest of this. I'm looking at 45, just about 45 past the hour here. But sworn declaration, that's a tool that we use to establish service connection. It's a tool we use to explain what the VA calls an evidentiary gap, all right? It can be written by somebody who has firsthand knowledge of the event. So that means you, the veteran, can write it. Your battle buddy, as they call them now, I think, your battle buddy can write it. Somebody that you still remain friends with, that you served with overseas, they can write it. It can help you if it's written properly. It can help you win your case. You know, I get a lot of emails. The vets start, you know, we have a time and date set to submit their claim, and they're thinking about it. They're looking at stuff, and they're like, "Oh, hey Stu, should I get some buddy letters? You know, if we're going to submit this claim, let's say we're going to do mental health, SSD, somatic symptom disorder, secondary to an existing condition. If the statement's not written well, it's not going to help your case. You'll just waste your time. And believe it or not, that can be the hardest thing to do, is to get a friend to write a statement to support you, okay? It can be hard to get that claim or the statement written well. If it doesn't have the right flow, if they're not putting the effort in, it's not going to help your case. So most of the time I say don't do it. If a spouse wants to write it, that's different. Usually our spouses do a phenomenal job of getting the details in there we need. But for the most part, when we're doing like SSD secondary, they're gonna express what's going on at the C&P exam, that life impact. All right, that's where that's going to come into play. They're going to put more merit, more evidence on more probative value, if you will, on what you say there versus the statement. For PTSD, what do I tell you? We have to have for PTSD though. What's different about PTSD, if anybody remembers? For PTSD, we got to have a stressor, right? What was the stressor? In that case, we have to write a statement. We have to. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. But if we're doing an increase for mental health, if we're doing SSD as a secondary, a statement, I don't think it's going to help you, okay, unless it's a spousal statement. So I typically tell vets, yeah, let's not worry about that. okay? And we'll come back to that. Let me just answer this question here. Let's see. MFR, okay, that's a good question there. And I talked about this before, a memorandum for record. Okay, it's different than an MFR. It's different. Higher level review, that's a form of the appeal process. Okay, that's what we use to, when we believe there's an erroneous error. And that's what we fight that with, is the higher level review. For some people, you've maybe heard me talk about MFR, or memorandum for record. When a C&P examiner makes an open, obvious mistake, as in, or not just a mistake, but they were rude, they were dismissive. If you remember, if you were in the room before, Mr. Kennedy told us about his exam. The examiner said, I'll ask the questions. I don't need you to do any more. Why are you looking at your notes? She was out of line, right? She was out of line. When that happens, we report that to the VA with an MFR, memorandum for record. We submit that with your claim. We add it to your claim before it's decided on. And basically, and I can't pull one up right now because I didn't have time to pull off the PII information, but I'll get one prepped for maybe the next meeting. So we use that, though, when the VA examiner flat out wrong, all right? And you might want to punch him in the face, but you can't. So we put an MFR together and we detail, listen, this is what I did. I arrived on time, or I was early. The examiner was late. They didn't give me time to talk. They frequently cut me off. The whole exam lasted 15 minutes. I was told it was going to be an hour. She didn't ask me any questions about how I'm doing. She seemed to know everything. She already seemed to have her mind made up. Whatever it is, right? Whatever that experience is for you. And we submit that is just a matter-of-fact statement. And we usually end that statement with, I would request that the VA rater uses my private medical records, my privately procured VBQ and mental health assessment in lieu of the examiner's notes because of her behavior. And then we submit that with your claim. The VA raters put a lot of stock in those. When they open that up and they see that, they're like, oh, okay. And usually they dive into it a little deeper. And so far, every time I put an MFR in for a bad C&P exam, I've won it. Okay, I've still won it. So that prevents us from having to take the higher level review route. That's why we want to get it in, get it turned around a little quicker. Okay, so the MFR is not at all to do with the appeal process. It's how we put bad C&P examiners on notice at the VA. That's how we address them. That's really the only way. You can call the VA hotline, but you still don't know if the person that answered, you don't know if they're going to type it and put it in there. And after working in the intelligence world myself for 8 years, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen, right? That's just the way it is. They might tell you on the phone, yeah, I got it, we'll take care of it. And then you hang up and they're like, whatever, go get a cup of coffee. But you do an MFR, you upload that to your claim, that's on permanent record. You're basically putting them on blast, and that's your right. Now, we can't do it if it's just an exam we weren't comfortable with, okay? If you've been to a C&P exam, what I tell you is, hey, tell me if it's a bad exam, if you felt rude, or the examiner was rude, dismissive, etc. Okay, let me know about that. And let's see here. I think that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't, we can clarify. And I'll be more than happy if you want. I can plan a session where we talk about MFRs. I'll show you some examples. I'll be more than happy to go over them. Okay, I don't mind that at all. Let's see here. Question, how important is log-in benefits quoting frequent or changing symptoms for medical staff? Can you explain that a little more? What do you mean by quoting for medical staff? I'm not sure what you mean by that, sir. And again, any of the documents that I'm sharing, you can absolutely have copies. Just send me an email if you want one, and I'll send it to you. So, you mean documenting? Listen, if you are working your way toward 100% and you're not there yet, besides the C&P exam, documenting conditions, that's the next most important thing. Okay, diagnosis. There's 3 things. We got to have them. All right, doesn't work any other way. Service connection, diagnosis, life impact. If we can get those 3 things together, okay, if we can have them, we're going to get a win every time unless the VA makes an obvious mistake. We fight that with a higher level review. We fight a bad C&P examiner with an MFR, okay? And again, I don't just get trigger happy on MFRs. I don't like to do that. And I'll ask you, you'll come out of the exam and you'll be like, I don't know, this is sketchy. That person was a jerk. Okay, were they really a jerk, or were they just, curt? They weren't very empathetic, all right? A lack of empathy, a lack of connecting with you and establishing rapport is absolutely not a reason to do an MFR, okay? They need to do something that's just plain wrong, right? They cut you off, they're rude, they don't let you. This is your C&P exam, it's not theirs. This is for you. And if they're being rude, if they're controlling how things are going, they've already made up their mind. And my opinion, they're just a terrible examiner. And I will put those people on report every chance I get. Okay. You got it, absolutely. All right, folks, I got a 1 o'clock I'm going to get to. Any other questions, anything before we put a pin in today's session? All right.
No, just thanks for more info.
You got it. Love it. Love sharing it. Let's see. Mr. Bingham, I will answer your question here. I copied it and pasted it, so I'll get that to you. Just make sure I got to look at what more detail here. Again, thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. And tomorrow is Friday, so 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll be here, bells and whistles on. Thanks, Barb. You have a great weekend too. And if anything else comes up in the meantime, feel free to send an email. Okay.
Okay. Bye, Stuart.
Thank you all. Take care.
All right.